A good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. It is better to go to the house of mourning than to go to the house of feasting, for that is the end of all men, and the living will take it to heart. Sorrow is better than laughter, for by a sad countenance the heart is made better. The heart of the wise is in the house of mourning, but the heart of fools is in the house of mirth. It is better to hear the rebuke of the wise than for the man to hear the song of fools. For like the crackling of thorns under a pot, so is the laughter of the fool. This also is vanity. Surely, oppression destroys a wise man's reason, and a bribe debases the heart. The end of a thing is better than its beginning, the patient in spirit better than the proud in spirit. Do not hasten in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of fools. Do not say, why were the former days better than these? For you do not inquire wisely concerning this. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and profitable to those who see the sun. For wisdom is a defense, as money is a defense. But the excellence of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it. Consider the work of God. For who can make straight what he has made crooked? In the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider, surely God has appointed the one as well as the other, so that man can find out nothing that will come after him. Amen. So, last time we talked about how death is the great teacher. Wisdom is forged and fortified in the house of mourning. But what I love about this very perplexing book is its unflinching commitment to reality. So you get to the end of verse 6 and we think, okay, we figured it out. We're going to learn wisdom in the house of mourning. It's better to be in that place. We're going to learn what it means to live by contemplating death. But then he gets to the end, having kind of imparted this wisdom, and he says, but this also is vanity. There's always an even still with the book of Ecclesiastes. There's always yes, I've taken you so far, but then just consider this. We haven't quite got the whole story and the full picture. And it's not that we never arrive at the truth in the book, it's that truth is tested to its limits, pressure tested to its limits, with the harsh realities of life as it is. How many sermons have you listened to, and in the moment you're like lifted and really encouraged, and you think, like, this is great, this is what my life is about. But then you get into the grit of the week, and it seems that something is missing because you're just like everybody else. You're struggling like everybody else. You're frustrated like everybody else. And it really doesn't feel like any of the Christian stuff is real anymore. And Ecclesiastes, I think, is just the book where God reaches again and again into the existential crisis, and he says to his people over and over, look to me, look to me. The message tonight is this. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky passage, but the message tonight is this. Remember what wisdom is for. Remember what wisdom is for. And by wisdom, I really mean Christianity. A life with God. What is it for? Well, first, be careful along the way. Be careful along the way. Here we are inducted into the school of wisdom. We're God-fearers, we're Christians, we're taught, we're equipped, we're blessed. But still there's struggle and joy can evade us or else escape us altogether along the way. And why is that? Well, some of the problems here are presented in terms of time, or at least you can think about them in terms of time, past, present, and future. In verse 10, he says this, do not say, okay, so wisdom he thinks has kind of apparently failed, it's being tested. Again, what is the problem? Well, one of the problems is the past. Verse 10, do not say, why were the former days better than these? For you do not inquire wisely concerning this. Don't live in the past, though we do it often. We can't make peace with the present because the times are so rotten, because the nation is so lost, because everything is in ruin. It's not like it used to be. This marriage is not what it used to be. This friendship is not what it used to be. This work is not what it used to be. The refrain of my nursing colleagues when I was in nursing was this always that nursing is just not what it was. We just don't get the patient contact. There's all of this time with paperwork and on the computer, and we just can't get on with the real work. The past highlights the problems of the present. Christians do it too. This church is not like the church that I used to be in. This minister certainly is not like the minister that I used to have. This body it's not like the body that I once knew. This health is not what it once was. My mind is not what it once was. Even clothes. I have a disdain nowadays for Marks and Spencer's because it was always my go-to. It wasn't. Before I was a Christian, it wasn't. I became a Christian, and then I was inducted into the standard of the Christian's wardrobe. There you could go get your chinos. There you could get your soft cotton shirt. But I don't know if you noticed, but over the last 15 years, I absolutely guarantee the clothes are not what they used to be. M&S has increasingly moved in the direction of fast fashion, and they have degraded the quality of the materials that you once could get, as well as changing the sizes to fit the modern kind of tastes. But that might just be me as I've grown along the way. Now, whether it's true or not about the past in any of those senses, we'll never really know. Because our memories fail us. Our memories distort what once was. But the more important thing is, how does that help anything? Because you can't live in the past. You have to live in the present. We can't go back. And all that happens is we end up grumpy about the present, which, by the way, is God's present. And to be grumpy about things as they are is tantamount to a kind of blasphemy. And so the past, it gets in the way for us as Christians. It gets in the way of wisdom. But nor are we to be scandalized by the present, just shocked, appalled, aghast at the present as it is, which will manifest itself either in anger and outrage. Verse 9. So here is another problem. Do not hasten in your spirit to be angry, for anger rests in the bosom of fools. Why would we be angry? Because this person is not doing what they said they would do. This person is not being as I wish them to be. This project that I've undertaken, this house project, once again, it's like I thought I'd be done in 2 hours, and here I am 6 hours later, and it's still not right, and we get angry and we get frustrated because things are not as we would wish them to be. Or it presents this being scandalized by the present in a corruption of heart that seeks to manipulate and outmaneuver the state of play by whatever means. So things are not as I wish, and therefore I will make them as I wish. And so in verse 7, he says, surely oppression destroys a wise man's reason, and a bribe debases the heart. As the difficulties increase of the present for the wise man, his reason is destroyed, his wisdom is knocked off kilter, and even he ends up succumbing to bribery to do what? To change the circumstances, to make them as he would wish them to be. And you might think to yourself, well, I've never accepted a bribe. Hopefully you haven't. But have you never cut corners at work when you're under pressure? Have you never ignored speed limits when you're under pressure? Have you never tried to dodge fees and debts owed? Have you never flaked on promises and vows and commitments and professed principles? Have you never given yourself permission to sin just a little bit, to blow off just a little bit of steam because the times are hard? And of course, much of this is trying to change not just the present, but the future. It's about manipulating, maneuvering to create the tomorrow that we want, because today is not what we want. And so what's going on in all of this? If you are affected by the past, the present, if you are affected by the future, do we say that wisdom has served us poorly? Do you ever think, I'm a Christian, but still I'm deeply unhappy because of the past? I'm unhappy in the present, and I'm concerned for the future. But if you look, wisdom's not the problem. The Christianity's not the problem. In fact, wisdom, our standing before the Lord, our adherence to the philosophy of life, the spiritual disciplines that the Lord has given, is not the problem. In fact, those things are under attack. Wisdom is destroyed. In verse 7, oppression destroys the wise man's reason. Anger, as we said in verse 9, it makes us to be fools. It removes us from the path of wisdom, and it puts us onto the pathway of fools. And the heart of all of this, the heart of the problem in verse 8 is what? It's pride. The end of a thing, he says, is better than its beginning. Here is kind of a proverb. The end of a thing is better than its beginning. The patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Wisdom, you see, is supposed to wait with meekness and humility. Is supposed to be able to stay the course, avoid rash changes, play the long game, await the end of a thing, and trust the outcome with the Lord. And so endure the present, leave the past behind, and look to the future with hope. And so why don't we do that as Christians? Well, pride says no. Pride is the problem. Pride is the enemy of our wisdom, the enemy of our Christianity. Pride says, I deserve better than this. Pride says, I had it better in the past. Pride fixates, blaming the past because we don't have the present that we want to have. Pride says, I don't have to put up with this. I don't have to put up with these circumstances. I don't have to put up with these people. And so I will be furious. And so I will seek to bend the rules to get what I really want, to make my life what I really want it to be. Pride takes matters into its own hands, or the other case, pride wallows in self-pity. A word to the wise then, watch out for pride. Pride will undercut wisdom. It is pride that undercuts our Christian life and our Christian calling. Pride seduces us to a discontented rejection of life as it is. And God has made life as it is. Who was it who told you that things should be as you imagined them to be, as you wish them to be, and that you were entitled? Because it seems this is the same work, the same spirit, the same voice of the devil who inflamed the desires of our first parents to spurn the goodness of God and to take from the tree for the fruit that is desirable to make one wise. But still, if wisdom is so undercut by pride, get into the grit of weak, pride gets in the way, and the Christianity just feels worthless to us. We got to ask the question, is wisdom, is our Christian calling really potent enough to sustain our pilgrimage? Like, if pride can get in the way so easily, then maybe wisdom is the problem, because maybe the wisdom was never good enough in the first place. Well, I think that wisdom really is potent enough so long as we remember what wisdom is for. So here we are, inducted into the school of Christ, but we've got to be careful along the way, avoiding that kind of draw to the past, not being scandalized by the present, trying to force a tomorrow in pride. But wisdom can help us if we remember what wisdom's truly for. See, wisdom has many fruits. And this is one of the blessing of wisdom, but it's also the problem, or becomes a problem to us. You see, if you're wise, you will have better relationships. You'll be better stewards of what God gives. You'll have a better appreciation of the goods of this life. And there's nothing wrong with any of that. And I think that verse 11, as tricky as it is to translate and interpret, is saying just that. Wisdom is good with an inheritance, and it's profitable for those who see the sun. Wisdom with riches, with something to spend, makes for a really good life because we know what to do with them, and we can do all of the things that wisdom kind of directs us to do. Wisdom is really good with health and with life as long as we see the sun. Right? Wisdom enriches our life. Wisdom is amazing when we have means, when we have health. It can lead to a fuller, more colorful life. In many ways, verse 12, it's like money in that it can lead us into many good things. And that's mostly true. If I compare my life with family members from Sunderland who just never knew Christ, my life is just so much richer. I've been led away from sins that I see family members entrapped in. I've been led into this noble calling. I've been given opportunities and education that they didn't have. I've been led into a faithful and therefore really blessed marriage, and I've been given these little ones. My life is so much better, not through any merit of my own, but through the blessings that come from walking with the Lord, from walking in wisdom. It's not even like moving from a black and white TV to a colored TV. It's the old illustration. It's like going from the black and white TV to the color TV, but really just like stepping into this new reality. This is what I have done as a Christian. This is what God has done for me. Really, it's an amazing thing. But there's a potential problem here, and I think an intended caution. I think verse 11 presents a perspective of one who values wisdom only for the certain fruits of a good, enjoyable, enriched, happy, and secure light, and loses sight of the chief fruit, which is God himself. And so it moves on in verse 12 to say wisdom, yeah, it's like money, it's instrumental. Wisdom with inheritance is great. Wisdom, as long as we see the sun, is great. But, and, it makes no difference, the excellence of knowledge, please never forget this. The excellence of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it. And I take life here to mean life with God, because then he goes on in verse 13. Don't forget the excellence of knowledge is that wisdom gives life to those who have it, and so consider the work of God. Is it possible that one of the reasons we are so shaken in this life, one of the reasons we get to the grit of the Monday to the Saturday when we are not in the house of God and begin to question whether this wisdom is ever working, is because we have placed so much value in the secondary fruits of wisdom, the rich and the good life as we know it today, that we have undermined the strength of the gift of wisdom itself in losing sight of her choicest fruit, which is the knowledge of the Most High God. I think we know this is the case when we find ourselves lost in the past, restless in the present, and trying to force a future in pride that says, this is not the life that I deserve. Why not? If our eyes are on God, we know that God appoints the life that he wishes us to have. We know that God is sufficient for the life that he has appointed for us. And we could view this as a kind of binary thing, and I was tempted to do this as I was first thinking about the sermon. We could say that there is a wisdom, there is a Christianity that kind of takes all of the benefits for this life, but it misses the heart, which is a living faith and trust in God. We could see it that way, and there would be people in that category. They have taken the benefits of Christianity, the kind of the moral instruction, the wisdom for this life, the kind of benefits it gives in terms of the community and everything else, but they have missed the beating heart of faith and the great reward, which is the God who gives himself to us through our faith. But I actually think for most of us, it's more of a kind of continuum. I think all of us are striving and wrestling somewhere on this line where we recognize how good God can make life to be, but we're also trying to never lose sight of the fact that it is God who is most good. It is God, above all of the goods that he gives, who really satisfies, who really strengthens, who really makes this life and all of eternity possible. And when we are but a few degrees off, and it becomes more about the goods that we can enjoy, this life under the sun with wisdom, this wisdom with inheritance, it is there that we introduce a sadness into our life. And that error, I think, is exposed when our fortunes change. When we are opposed, when we are oppressed. Because there we see what really matters to us. And if it's this world, then we will cross land and sea to make this world what we wish it to be. But if it is God, then we will be at rest, even in troubled seas. I think it's for this very reason that God appoints times, verse 14, of both prosperity and then also adversity, and leaves us in the dark. That we never evaluate the merits of wisdom for her secondary gifts. He takes them away, so that we can cherish her for the primary gift of God himself. And here is the amazing thing. God's wisdom is so profound that the very conditions that led to us doubting the value of wisdom are the very conditions that he uses to teach us its proper value. It's not in these things. I can do so much good for your life. I can make your life so rich. But the richness, it was never in these things. It was in me. It was always in me. He gives days of adversity to lead us to the contemplation of God so that we would be happy in times of both prosperity and in times of adversity, that we would be happy at all times. And so in wisdom we need to learn this, to walk with God. To walk with God, to take her choicest fruit, which is God himself. If you're feeling oppressed and hard done to, as though you're missing out on some good, there's some secret that others enjoy, let wisdom, let Christianity, let Christ lift you to God. Consider your God. Reassure your heart in the sovereignty of the Lord who appoints every day. Reassure your heart in God who has made the crooked day as well as the straight, as he says in verse 13. He has made every day. Why should we be sad? Why should we resent the hard days as well as the good, the days of adversity as well as the days of prosperity? Why should we be angry? Why should we nurse our wounds? Why should we become trapped in the past? Why should we sacrifice our integrity to begin fashioning the world that we want instead of simply being at peace in God? Why can we not be in peace, at peace in this Lord? All of the bad feeling, all of the distraction, all of the disturbances of our peace will never change the day that he has appointed, they only make it harder to bear. But we need to look beyond what we see, beyond what we'll see tomorrow, beyond what we'll see on Tuesday, beyond what you see at work on Wednesday, to look up with wisdom all the way to the sovereign God and to rest in what he has appointed, so that we can do more than just not tantrum, but that we might remember in times of leanness that he has given us many pleasant days too. He has given us many days of prosperity, as he says in verse 14, as well as days of adversity. I can remember really special times the Lord gave me when I was little. Very nice times with Mum and Dad. Every now and then, we get back maybe from school, and they'd be like, we have to go on just a little job. But the little job was really a secret cinema trip, or a trip to the soft play, a trip to McDonald's, and we come back, and these are really just precious memories, and I have special times as an adult now doing the same with my children. I have these moments with God. I have moments with Anna. I have moments with friends here in the congregation where I'm just overwhelmed at how blessed I am. Great days of prosperity. But he gives us these, and we remember these, not just so that we can learn to take the bitter with the sweet, which kind of is one of the lessons we're supposed to learn. If we take the good from God, we have to take the difficult. But that's not really it. We remember these things not just to take the bitter with the sweet, but to know that the God who appointed the highs, and you'll have had many of them in your life, must have reasons for the lows, and so you can rest in him. Every awful day is just the voice of the Lord, who says, will you trust the love that I have for you? And every brilliant day is just the voice of the Lord, who says, enjoy the fat without anxiety, for I will still be good tomorrow. The more that we rise in wisdom, we hear his voice, the more natural it is for us not to be rash, not to force change, not to compromise our integrity, not to be sad, but to do as verse 8 says, to wait with meekness and humility and happiness upon our God, who is always good. To know that the end of a thing, verse 8, is better than its beginning. To have that patient spirit and not be proud. To entrust the ends and the outcomes with God. To know that God will, as we wait upon him, as we do what is right, whether in adversity or in prosperity, that he will always make all things right for us. Wisdom is not the problem. A misuse of wisdom is. A prizing of the secondary benefits over the primary. Christianity is not the problem. It's a prizing of the secondary benefits of Christianity over the primary. Christianity, nor wisdom, nor Christ himself will never fail you. To follow Christ is always right and good and blessed. It is pride, and it's an imbalanced appreciation of what wisdom is for and what Christ is for that undercuts the strength of both. Let wisdom lead you always to consider God, and so walk with God on the mountain peaks, but also in the valleys low. Joyful without fear of loss in times of feasting. Take them, enjoy them, appreciate them as his gifts, but then sober, patient, and assured in times of leanness. Verse 14, in the day of prosperity be joyful, but in the day of adversity consider. Surely God has appointed the one as well as the other. Amen.